listeners, it's AZ, and today's episode is awesome. This is episode 107, and I spoke with Chief Nick Perkins of the Pflugerville Fire Department. Now, you've heard of Pflugerville before because I had Vanessa on, and I had Dr. Jacob Moda, and I had Mike Connor, and I had Russ Burnham. So, you have heard of Pflugerville before, but now you're going to get to hear directly from the chief. He was appointed on October 1st of 2021, and he has been with Pflugerville since 1998. This was an incredible interview. I know you're going to love it. Listen, do me a favor. Give us a rating, give us a review, and if you learned something, please share this with someone who will benefit from the information. Have a great day. Here's Chief Perkins. Thank you for joining me on the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, AZ. I find the research and resources and then provide the fire service with the so what, now what, to ensure the health and well-being of every member of our profession. Together, let's thrive. Hey listeners, it's AZ with the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast, and today I have the great honor of sitting down with Pflugerville Fire Department Chief Nick Perkins. Chief, say hello to the listeners.
Hello, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here too, and it's funny, the caption for the podcast coming out in a couple weeks is actually all roads lead to Pflugerville, because I was speaking with Russ Burnham from Frontline Mobile Health. So Here we are. So I want the listeners to get to know you a little bit. So I'll ask you 3 rapid fire questions. The first is, who is Nick Perkins?
Yeah, I'm a few things. I'm first off, a husband and a father to my wife and 2 boys. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I'm 45 and I have little kids. So who is Nick Perkins? I'm just like a tired person chasing 2 little kids. And then obviously I'm a 26-year fire service professional, 27 years, but 26 with Travis County ESD number 2, also known as the Pflugerville Fire Department. And I currently am the fire chief. Other than that, do some adjunct work at the community college here and have worked in high school programs, teaching and helping start fire and EMT programs in high school is something that's really important to me and something that I've been doing for a long time. But that's me.
Well, and the fact that you have 2 little kids, I cannot imagine chasing little kids. Good on you.
I'm a late bloomer, and it's really hard to do in your 40s.
Well, I was, Mike Connor too has all those children. I'm like, holy jeepers, friend.
Yeah.
All right.
Mike's like a freak in nature, though. He's got energy for days, though.
Oh, we're going to go down a rabbit hole already because I forgot. He mentioned that you are a deadly jiu-jitsu dude. Tell me more.
Yeah, no. So I'm a lifelong martial artist, but I'm not good. I'm not very good.
That's not what I heard.
I'm huge into martial arts, and I like doing martial arts because they're really hard. But there's a certain population within martial arts, particularly Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and they're known as people that do it, but they never really get good at it. And getting good at it's not really why they do it. And I fit in that category.
All right, I'm actually terrified of jiu-jitsu. I feel like the second I got thrown on the ground, I would break in half. I'm just a very brittle human. So anyway, Chief Perkins, what sets your soul on fire?
A few things. I think being in the service of others, probably something you hear a lot in our business, but I get a lot of genuine joy and happiness out of helping people. And so it drew me to the fire service. And so, now I'm not necessarily serving the residents directly. I'm serving the firefighters. And so it still has that appeal and that connection for me. And I'd say the other thing is like I was just saying earlier with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is I really like doing hard things, not necessarily being good at it or succeeding at doing hard things, but I just really like trying hard things.
You said something that is sort of a theme with some of the chiefs that I've spoken with, which is serving the firefighters. And I'm not sure that that is a commonality in across the fire service. How did you come to the realization that that's the way you needed to conduct business?
I've been real fortunate in my career because I've worked for chiefs that just kind of set that standard, and so it's kind of really what I kind of grew up in. I think Chief Brunacini said it a long time ago that you take care of your firefighters and they'll take care of the residents. And I was just, like I said, really fortunate. I've had nearly all of my fire chiefs from battalion on up have always just they've been for real about taking care of people.
That's incredible. And then finally, Chief, how are you changing the world?
I don't really think I'm changing the world, but you
I
know,
do.
I'm doing my best in a couple areas. I think raising two boys, I'm doing what I can to make sure that they're going to be good humans when they grow up, and certainly contribute to a better world. I think at work, we've made some advancements here, not only in our service delivery for the community, but we really set off with kind of what I think we're going to be talking about today is with health and wellness. I think we're setting the stage for some real lifelong impacts to our firefighters that my hope is when they retire, these benefits are just going to keep going. And you look at the impacts that has, to their family, grandkids and great grandkids, things like that. Those are things that I hope we're doing to change the world.
I think you definitely are. And before we dive into that, you mentioned you're changing the way you're delivering service. And I'm assuming you mean that to your citizens of your jurisdiction. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're doing a number of things. So just a little bit of background, what's going on in our community with the tech explosion really starting in the pandemic. Um, we just exploded our community in terms of population. So our fire department, our community has essentially doubled in size in the last almost 4 years. So we serve over 160,000 people, and we've added over 150 personnel over the last 4 years. And so that is significant. And so that's been a good thing, obviously, in that we're being able to keep up with the demand and services that we're seeing from the community. Lots of challenges, obviously, bringing that many new people in. And then, just the other kind of growth pains that come along into a community with population increases. So we're seeing just competing demand for nearly every service from education, public transit, standard county and municipal services. And then, we of course don't want to get lost with public safety. And so trying to establish a sustainable emergency medical system is probably what consumes me the majority of the time in terms of what we're dealing with today. And that's getting ambulances, enough ambulances in the community and in a sustainable format that we can fund them and continue to keep up with the demand.
I knew that you had grown a lot, but I wasn't aware it was by that much. And I wonder if it was maybe sort of divine intervention that you were exploding with all these new firefighters and creating this culture at your department. Do you think that helped that you were kind of like growing fast with new firefighters?
Yeah, a lot of people. I talked to a lot of fire chiefs, and they just can't wrap their minds around doubling in size in that short period of time. And a lot of them kind of start locking in on the challenges and like the nightmares or whatever. And I'm like, well, all that is true, but really, it is a tremendous opportunity to start. Kind of not so much fresh, but to start right out the gate with where you want to go and where you want to be organizationally. And we've been fortunate just on the topic of health and fitness. We've been doing it. We've been in the game a while, and it's just kind of neat to now that is our culture. And so new people are coming in, and it's kind of all they know. And obviously down the road, that's just going to set us up for good things.
So we've heard little pieces about your department in various episodes. I had on Vanessa, and she's going to be on again really soon, talking about some things. And then we've had the folks from Frontline Medical. But I want to hear from you as the chief, sort of I guess your origin story, like you came in as the chief and you wanted to make a change. And obviously, you can't change everything overnight. But what were those little steps in that process to get from where you were to where you are today?
Yeah. Um, really kind of standing on the shoulders of giants and greats. So, previous fire chief Ron Mullenberg, he's a mentor, hero, father figure for me. He was the fire chief here for 40 years, and so
Wow.
you don't really meet a fire chief that's able to serve in that role for that long. But this guy is just he's an enigma. He's a pillar of the community. Just you can't measure the impact that he's had not only on the fire department, just the community. He was a council member, Boy Scout leader. He's done everything, and he, again, like I was saying earlier, he was really committed to taking care of people, and so going back early in my career, I think 2008, we started doing medical physicals, and that was largely because of him. He was a student in the fire service and started recognizing at that point in his career this thing about longevity, and was dealing with a lot of his own ailments, and was like, man, we got to get ahead of this. I don't want everybody to wind up like me. I mean, he said that many times, and so we did. We started really under his leadership, but like most fire departments, I think at the time we had no wellness fitness budget, so we started kind of meagerly. And we started just doing a physical here at the local, one of the local hospitals, essentially out of their occ ed department. And it was really, for lack of a better, it was like a DOT almost type physical. So it was very, very simple. But it was something, right? It was like we were doing something. And there's a lot of inconsistencies. Like, a similar person my age, I would ask what they did and what I did. It was completely different. And so depending on what day you went in there, what provider was on, what their workload was like, it just really varied what you got. And of course, I'm sitting here like, man, we've been doing this for a while, and we don't know if we're getting better or worse. Like, what is the value of this? So I try to work directly with the provider and say, hey, can we start standardizing some of this stuff with NFPA 1582? Can we just start standardizing and start following these protocols? And they were like, yeah, I mean, we're doing the best we can, and we know what we're doing. So they weren't really receptive to that, and of course, a lot of this, as I kept digging deeper, I was uncovering, they were kind of finding things, but like sometimes they wouldn't even follow up with the employee very well. The fire department had no idea what was going on, and so I was just like, man, I think we're missing an opportunity here. So at the time, I'd come into the training and safety position in the fire department, and this was kind of in my area of responsibility. So I started calling every healthcare provider in our area that you could find, and just said, hey, here's what we're looking to do. We're the fire department. There's a standard. We want to get this done annually. We're really interested in data. So if you can like write stuff down and collate it and track it and provide it back to the individual, we'd like that. And no one was really interested. I just think it was such a niche. There wasn't a ton of money in it, at least from their perspective. And so nobody was interested. And I called everybody. And the only people who were really desirable were these national kind of outfits that would come to your location. But even with that, there was this other thing that was kind of starting to build, was we were sitting here making light duty decisions, return to work decisions, and none of us are occupational physicians. And I was always weirded out by that. I'm like, who are we to make these decisions? And then you're relying on a general practitioner who also doesn't know about the fire service, and they're sending them back to work. You got a broken hand, and they're like, well, they're good to go. Just don't use that hand. And it's like, well, what? And so we were having problems like that. And so, I was talking to somebody, there's only a few of those national outfits. And I was like, well, what can you do for this? And they're like, oh, well, we don't do that. And so anyways, I was just kind of frustrated, and I was in a staff meeting and was just kind of lamenting about this with the other chiefs. And I think I said, if we could find a provider that kind of gave a damn, we could probably do something here. And one of our chiefs, AJ Stacer, was like, I go to a church with a guy that's a PA, and he does what you're talking about for the Army, and he's looking to get out. He's kind of looking for what to do, and he has a real interest in helping first responders. And so he's like, I'm going to bring him over here, and you need to meet him. And so, yeah, we met with Russ. The rest is history, and that program really kind of bore out of that. And that's how we got to where we're at with that. And occurring at the same time was this commitment to fitness. And so the fire chief at the time, he bought equipment, very rudimentary. We called it like prison style kind of weight room equipment. And so we had stuff at our stations, and he's like, go work out. In fact, I'm going to mandate you got to work out. And of course, we're telling people to work out, we're giving the equipment, but we haven't shown them how to do it. And so you're getting this, the power people, max benching every day, to the, person just walking on a treadmill, to one person doing yoga, whatever they're wanting to do. There's just no consistency, no real strategic plan. So that really kicked off a group that eventually went to the WFI, got their peer fitness thing. Never really got the peer fitness program up and running because of the challenges that you get when you don't embed and bring in an outside professional. But the one really impactful thing that many members of that group did is they built a plan and said, well, this is probably what we should do. And they really modeled it after, professional team. And so that's where the idea of a strength and conditioning coach, athletic trainer, and all of the, nutritionists and all of those supplemental services really kind of came out of that program, which led to us hiring at first a contract strength and conditioning coach, which was like the stereotypical coach, just a hardcore dude. Everybody come in here, go hard. And then he goes into a fire station, is like, people are like laughing at him or whatever. So, but we did that for a little bit. And then, what really came out of that is like, we need a full-time person, but we also need the right person. And so we put a lot of effort into getting everyone on board to hiring the right person. And I'm talking about all levels of leadership, because most of the people who had the most beef with the other hardcore dude were the upper, more experienced, more tenured and experienced folks. So I got them really involved in that. I even told them, I'm not making this decision. Y'all have to hire this person. And so we advertised it. I mean, we got hundreds of applications. And maybe even close to 1,000. I mean, we had a ton of people apply just because there's, a lot of people in that space. But we went ahead and fine-tuned it. We wanted Division I college experience. We wanted master's degree. We wanted that uniqueness and the ability to work with our athletes. And so we actually made them come, hang out, do a group workout with everybody. And one person just was the obvious selection, and that was Vanessa. And so that's kind of how we got to Vanessa. And then that was all rudimentary, like, not claiming, I don't want to brag about any of that. That was all stumbling, tripping, falling. When we got to Vanessa is when things started getting really good, because we brought in a professional who knew what she was doing. She knows firefighters. Like, it was like she was born to work with firefighters. And so, now we can't live without her. And I wish we had a Vanessa in every fire station in the country.
Yes, I want to talk a lot more about that, because there's this hesitancy to invest the funds in an outside person. Even firefighters, not just administration, even firefighters raise their hand and say, I can do this. Well, my friend, you are interested and passionate about fitness, but you're not a master's. You haven't coached at the Division I level. So talk to the chiefs and the firefighters now about why it's so important to find the funds to invest in this person to lead your program.
Yeah, I think it's good that some departments are doing something right, utilizing existing staff. And I think, if that's what you got to do, then do it. But it's like everything. We ask our firefighters, we already asked them to come to work every third day, work 24 hours. The list goes on of all these things that we want them to do. And then it's like, oh, by the way, this other, top priority programmatic thing in the fire department, we want you to run that too. And it's like on your day off, it's like, this is not a recipe for success, really. And so even if you have like the best, most qualified person, it's like, man, you want somebody doing this part-time, doing their best, or do you want a dedicated person who doesn't have the other kind of quote unquote distractions of the job? And so, that's the real value by getting the embedded person. And I'll just say, Vanessa brings, she's got a deep appreciation for all the firefighter stuff, all of our thing, our quirks and everything like that. But just the outside perspective that not working in the fire, because working in the fire service kind of taints your reality a little bit about things. She comes in here fresh and she's like, what are you talking about? Like that, like whatever you think it's kind of tainted, because this business just from the get-go is just, it's not synonymous with health. And so for many reasons. So So I think that's the big added value. And you know, talking largely about this whole space it is a priority program in your fire department. So if you have a fleet program, you got to have a health and wellness program. They are synonymous. And we've been lopsided on that, right? No fire chief in the country is going to question his fleet or her fleet budget, right? They'll defend that to the death. But then in equal conversation, well, what are you doing on the fitness, wellness? Oh, well, we're doing our best, or we can't really do that, or whatever. And it's like, nope, 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 nope. And that's where this gets kind of difficult. And I don't want to be confused. I'm a fire chief. I deal with the budget. It's all I deal with. So I don't have hair. Um, there is only so much money, right? The pie is only so big. But we're chiefs, and we make kind of strategic things. We make budget plans. We're not like firefighters. We know we can't do things overnight. We sometimes we got to plan things out for many years. And that's what we're supposed to do. And so, if you don't have that money, or if you're facing challenges, well, you got work to do, and it's going to take some time. But you got to get past this. I can't, or I won't, or it's like Henry Ford said, like, well, yeah, your mind's made up. But I don't want to come across insensitive to people with budget problems, because I think it's really easy to look at some of these fancy fire departments and go, well, I'm never going to be able to do that. And that may be true based on your community and your local kind of constraints, but you can do something. And you can probably do a lot, because I know you can do a lot without even any money. But the money helps, the money's necessary, and you got to get there, and you got to start somewhere.
When you were originally sort of going for the medical physicals and hiring Vanessa and things like this, were you relying on grant money? Were you writing grants, or were you just finding that money in the budget?
Kind of both. We primarily did it with budget dollars. We started, I think we had $8,000 in our health and wellness budget. And that's where we started. And that was primarily for those physicals we were doing at that workman's comp provider. We did, I would say, where Frontline really kind of, what I want to say is, went like full spectrum, adding like almost every possible thing you can do with research-backed, evidence-based screening and testing. We did get a big grant to do that regionally, and that really got the program kind of started in terms of next level, doing things that we had always wanted to do. So I'd say we did a lot of it with our existing budget dollars, and grew programs and developed budgets based on that. But I will say we did get that FEMA grant, and it really helped push what Frontline was able to do to kind of the next level.
Then once you were able to get those physicals, did you figure out a way to sort of reinvest? So for example, they find something on the physical, and then that saves you X number of dollars because that person didn't go off on a cardiac or something. Did you then sort of reinvest that into the program, or what did you do once that grant was gone?
Yeah, so we were able to show, just some of the testimonial type stuff that we got from that physical, which is a part of the reporting requirements for the grant. We really were able to justify internally about why we should continue doing this. And so, we got that benefit. But you're really going down the road of ROI, which for me is like the carrot that I'm like forever chasing. And it is, I think, the next kind of horizon for us as a service. It's really hard to do, I think, as you know, measuring something that didn't happen. But there is a way to do it, and there is certainly a way to approach it. And so we have not got to where I want to get in terms of ROI. There's some literature out there that shows the ROI. It's kind of old, I think. But I do think that's the next horizon, and I'm excited because I know there's a lot of fire departments doing a lot of cool things, and I hope that we're all moving towards that and doing a really good job of it, because I think it is going. Once we get our heads wrapped around it, once we get good at it, I think it's going to be pretty epic in showing what we're doing just based on the existing literature. And you see what we're doing now. I mean, I think it's going to be exponential. But I will fully acknowledge we're not where we need to be in terms of measuring that yet.
Yeah, ROI on upstream interventions is tough. It's really tough. But let me ask you this, because firefighters are historically we're very nervous about new things, and we hate two things: change and the way things are. You know this. And so, how did you get your firefighters on board with the medical testing and with Vanessa and the 4 times a year various testings that you do with them? How did you do it?
To be honest, we've had a few things kind of going in our favor. And then, there's some stuff we didn't do really well. One, I'll just say like the idea of fitness and working out, it's just been a part of our culture. We're a young department. We're, a new department. We're only since 1955. So we're a younger fire department. And so I'll say the idea of working out and being healthy was an easier sell in that regard. But we did have old dudes and dudettes. And so, um, getting that buy-in was challenging, and we probably didn't do it as well as we could have. I think we went too far too fast initially. Meaning like everything we do here, we hit the ground running, and then just kind of address problems as they come up in the rear view. And we probably could have done ourselves. We probably could have eliminated a lot of frustration and some challenges on the front end. But the good thing that did come out of that is we've been running at this pace for many years now, and it's just kind of understood. But probably equally, if not more important, was the commitment, and so organizationally. And so what I mean by that is, look, we know you're all humans. We're humans, and we know that you're going to have struggles. You're going to have highs and lows in your life, and our commitment to you is we're going to be there, and we're going to be there to help get you to where you need to be. And we're going to invest heavily, beyond question, to get you where you need to be. But you've got to help us. You've got to be cooperative, and you've got to help us. This is not going to be a one-way relationship. And we had several cases where we did that. And so I think it's all of that. And, I definitely would say I would do things differently. I mean, like I said, we just hit the ground running, and that was probably not the best way to do it. But, ultimately it was part of the ability to kind of get where we're at now. But I would have probably done some things differently and slowed down in some areas. But, that's the number one thing I get asked from fire chiefs across the country is like, what happens when you find something? That's like the number one thing. And I'm like, well, you deal with it. And so you don't think you're going to start looking under the hood and you're not going to find stuff. These are humans. You're going to find all kinds of stuff. And it's the opportunity of a lifetime to intervene, help, and provide resources to get folks where they need to be. And most people, not all of them, but most people are going to deeply appreciate that, and they're going to do what they need to do because they're firefighters. That's what we do.
It sounds like having this trusting relationship is just a huge part of it. And one of the questions I was actually going to ask you, you already alluded to it. I was going to ask you about where you got tripped up and where would you maybe change some things. And you alluded to slowing down, but can you be a little bit more specific on that?
Yeah, I think like like on the fitness stuff, you come out right out the gate and you show a standard, and you go out and do that. And if people don't meet that standard, and if you don't talk a whole bunch about what does that mean if you don't hit the standard, you're going to create a lot of fear and trepidation, within the ranks. And so, I think having a really tiered kind of approach, like here's the standard. If you don't meet the standard, here's what we're going to do for those folks that are on the bubble. If you're way outside the standard, here's what we're going to do. A lot of that stuff wasn't fully developed. It was just like, we're going to do this, and whatever happens, happens. And so we eventually got through those different layers, but it was kind of like as we were going, we were building the plane as we were flying it. It would have made a lot more sense to build the plane. Everybody knows where the oxygen comes down and the emergency things. We were just doing all that as we were flying, and it's just how we do a lot of stuff here. And so, in hindsight, we could have avoided some, really just misunderstandings, because at the end of the day, we've not taken all these people off the truck and done all the stuff. What we have done is very sincerely helped people address some health issues, and in doing so, I think had a profound effect on their quality of lives.
In my experience, when they find something, the person is initially freaked out, but then they come back 6 months later and thank you profusely. Thank you for helping me.
Yeah. And once once they go through all of it, they get all the help and the intervention. Yeah, there's no question. It's like, yeah, there's no secrets here. There's no plan to jack you up. Uh, the plan has always been, like we said, to get you in the best shape that you can be and live a long time, retire and thrive, not just survive.
One of the things that my listeners were pretty shocked about when Vanessa was on was the fact that you will pay employees to come and work out. Is it 2 times a week, 2 hours a week?
Yeah, we'll pay overtime. Yep.
Tell me about that, and tell me, is it successful? Is it worth it? Do a lot of people take advantage of it?
Yeah, it's horribly underutilized. So we have, I think, less than 10%. We have single digits that utilize that benefit. What the intent was, again, we're asking firefighters to do so much when they're at work, and obviously we want them to work out. But as you know, you can't do all of the workouts that you need to do on duty and still be ready, with max effort and things like that. So that's what kind of started the idea of like, well, let's give an off-duty opportunity, because if we want people to get max benefit with their strength and conditioning training, but they can't do it while we're paying them, like we need, like, there's a big gap there. So that was really kind of the primary thing. We also acknowledge that sometimes you just get hammered during shift and you don't have the right opportunity to do that, and so we want to make sure that you have an additional opportunity. The way this conversation goes, and is, kind of an old school way of thinking, but it's still prevalent in our business, is your fitness is a personal responsibility. And that's true to an extent, right? Like, I do need to have ownership and accountability of the oath that I took, the job that I'm in, the people who I'm responsible to, my crew. That's true. All that's true. But again, like, I'm human, and this is like real life. And so the average person who doesn't do our job, just like in America, like, it is hard to work out. It is a hard. If everybody was working out, we would have no disease, and everybody would be great. It's a real challenge in our society. And so, we ask ourselves, well, what can we do about it? Because we're already starting with a population that's just, everything's against them. What are some of the extra things we can do? And you're talking about just paying 2 hours of overtime per week. Um, it's nothing in the grand scheme of things. And again, and as I started the conversation off with, it's a tremendous benefit that not everybody utilizes.
A lot of times when we talk about the risk management department, people just they hiss and back up. But I'm not talking about the risk management department. I'm talking about simply managing risk. And one of my previous guests, it might have been Mike actually, talked about how when you are doing all of these things for your employees, you are indeed managing risk, and it's a good investment. I cannot emphasize that enough. I just cannot. So, if you had all of the fire chiefs in the world listening to you right now, and you were able to sort of spell it out for them, the importance of what you're doing, the success of what you've had, and is it worth it? What would you say to those chiefs?
Yeah, it's like I was saying earlier. You get all the chiefs in a room. There's not a chief there that's not going to say, "I want my people to be healthy, to be strong, to live a long time." No one's going to argue that. What we're going to start kind of arguing is, what do we do about that? What can we do about that? And so, if you can't really have both, though, right? So if I want my firefighters to be strong, to be healthy, to live a long time, but then I'm not going to invest, like, those two things they're diametrically opposed. They don't go together. So, what it comes down to is, like, what are the biggest bangs for our buck? If we are facing those limitations, we're not going to say, oh, there's nothing we can do. Like, we're going to get past that. What are the things we can do, and where is the most bang for our buck? And it's got to start with some sort of medical physical, and FPA 1582 based. Even if you can't do everything, start somewhere. Even if you just target metabolic syndrome, that alone will bring you a lot of return on investment with what we know about metabolic syndrome in our job. And it's all modifiable, most of it. And so that's where you got to start. And then the fitness thing, like I said, you can do that without money, um, but you've got to do it. And then, if you want to do it really well, you've got to invest in that as well. And that's an outside embedded person. And then, I think the last equation for the people who are doing it in the room, and I'm preaching to the choir, is we need to close the circle with workman's comp, with that ROI, and we need to bring the data that I know is there to this conversation, because then it's not even a debate. It's just, here it is. And we have, like I said, we have some literature, somewhere between 3 to 7 to 1 return, but we don't have that specific literature on what we're talking about. And we just got to fill that gap, because then it's not even a conversation.
Oh, I love that answer. It's so good. So I want to ask you personally, in addition to the martial arts, what does Chief Nick Perkins do to keep himself healthy, well, all of those good things?
So, that's the other great thing about our fire department, is starting with the previous fire chiefs. We're not like, a lot of times, like, the dudes and dudettes who are talking fitness in our stations are like the super jacked fit people. And most people are like, I'm not you. I can't even listen to you right now. And almost kind of, it's off-putting or whatever. We don't have that problem here. We're like the chiefs, the leadership here. We're all like real people. We have one chief that's kind of a freak of nature. The rest of us are middle-aged, chasing our kids, stressed beyond belief, just doing our best. And so, my answer is, I'm strong. I'm with every firefighter and with every normal person across the country. I'm struggling. And for me, my diet has always been my challenge. If you put a taco or a donut in front of me right now, I will eat it. Somebody just came in and dropped cookies off on my desk, so I'm going to have to do something about that. But I struggle with everything that everyone else deals with. But I don't lose sight of the North Star. Is like, you've got to be fit to do this job. And I'm a firefighter. I drive a desk. I'm a fire chief. I drive a desk now. I go to 2 or 3 incidents a year, and I'm not pulling hose. They don't let me, because I'll ruin it, or I'll mess it up or something. But I do work out. And you've probably heard Mike Connor, talks about fitness as a prescription. And I understand. I know I can't outrun my diet. Can't outwork my diet. But I do work out pretty religiously, pretty vigorously. And if I don't work out, if I have like an off week where I don't work out, I'm a mess, like a legitimate mess. And so I think that's what I do well, is I work out. In terms of struggles, I got diet, stress management, workload, work-life balance, being present with my kids and my wife. I have all those struggles, and I'm not going to profess to be even good at any of those things. But fitness has been my savior. Working out has been my true north.
And I just have to know, the listeners are going to want to know, what are you going to do with those cookies?
So it was Administrative Professionals Week last week. So I'm going to hopefully give this to the administrative staff and maybe make it look like it was my idea or something. But I don't know the backstory on it. But
they probably gave them to you in the first place. Yeah. You just regifted your own gift.
Yeah.
Well, Chief Perkins, this has been a great honor. And I usually tie up the podcast at the end with, do you have any parting words? And then I want to talk about your dog if you have one. So any parting words?
No, I think we covered it really well. I'll just go back to, that question I get is, what if you find something, what if you start doing physicals and you find something, what if you don't, and something else happens, and to me, it's just not a question, but it is indicative of kind of where we're at as a service. I haven't seen the latest statistic, but we're definitely making progress. I think I listened to one of your podcasts where you're talking to Sarah Jenke. She's a huge fan of mine. It's important not to lose perspective of where we're at and how much we have gained. Mm-hmm. But just some of the questions I still hear in 2024 still shows we have a long ways to go. And we've got to get to where this is all just normal. Physicals are required. Embedded professionals is the norm. And I understand it's funding, it's challenges, add it to the list of a million things, but it's all worth it. And so, um, yeah, that's really, I just really want to emphasize that we've got to do this because it's the right thing to do and it's worth it.
Sarah's such a rock star. Gosh darn it.
Yeah.
Dang. Superhero. All right. Let's hear about your dog. You have one, right?
No, so I grew up with dogs. I grew up with dogs. I have two little kiddos who are obsessed with dogs, but they're also terrified of them. We were at some friends last night, and there's tons of dogs, and there's a little puppy there, and my son's like terrified of this little puppy, and I'm like, look, man, we've got to get over this. Like this little puppy's not going to hurt you. And he's like, well, I'm afraid he's going to bite me. And I'm like, he's not going to bite you. And literally, like a minute later, it was a puppy bite, but he bit one of the other little kiddos, but nothing happened. And my son's like, see, and so I have a long way to go, but I do envision in the next coming years, we're going to wind up getting a dog. But I had dogs all growing up. I love dogs, but at this point in my household, I'm not sure if I can handle another mouth to feed.
Well, I'm going to need some immediate notification if you do end up getting a dog, because I don't have one either. I'm just obsessed with everyone else's.
Yeah. I heard that on, you're saying that because your schedule, you respect, what that would, be on an animal, but I love that you're still a huge super fan, but you're retired now, right?
I am for a whole month.
So you're in the dog business for sure. Dog shopping business now, I imagine.
Well, I'm also starting a PhD, so more to follow. I don't know.
Well, yeah, you're still going to be faced with that time problem then if you're doing that.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Well, Chief Perkins, I appreciate your time so much. And I think with that, we can probably drop the mic and say AZ and Chief are officially out.